Would there be a time when the assassination attempt on President Traore stops? This is the question on the minds of everyone concerned about the leader of Burkina Faso, because more than any current African leader, President Traore has been subjected to the most assassination attempts. But the painful part is that the majority of the attempts were carried out by forces within Burkina Faso in collaboration with external forces. The recent assassination attempt is much worse because it was accompanied by a dark and sinister plot to destabilize Burkina Faso. However, one of Burkina Faso's dependable allies, Russia, has responded to the various attacks on Traore, sending massive troops to the country. But how deep was the destabilization plot? Why does it keep happening? What is Russia's plan? Let's find out. From the time Traore became the leader of Burkina Faso in September 2022, he has experienced up to 10 assassination attacks. Imagine that. This record makes Traore the only African leader to have survived the most assassination attacks in a short period of time. The first attack took place just 2 months after he took over power from the former military leader, Paul-Henri Damiba. Interestingly, the recent one, which is the 10th attack, was led by this same man, Paul-Henri Damiba. Now, when the first attack occurred, Traore made it known that he knew the people who launched the attack, but he decided to let them go scot-free and discuss with them. He also revealed that money was distributed to influence certain people to remove him from power, but he told them not to fall for it. Traore's approach must have worked because no attack was carried out again till September 2023. It's not exactly clear what caused this attack, but it was the second time Traore survived an assassination attempt. This time, however, Traore didn't let the perpetrators go scot-free. He launched an investigation into the attack and discovered that 3 military soldiers were involved in the plot. They were subsequently arrested and charged with involvement in a military plot, breach of military orders, plotting against state security, criminal association, and endangerment. From the time this second attack occurred, Traore has not had rest. It has been from one attack to the other. The third attempt occurred at the end of the same month, September, and between then and this year's September, Traore has experienced 8 attempts to assassinate and overthrow him. As we stated earlier, the last attempt is the worst of all because it involves a dark and sinister plot. You see, all the previous attacks were directed solely at President Traore, but this 10th one resulted in the deaths of hundreds of citizens and military personnel. According to the report, this sinister plan was orchestrated by some citizens of Burkina Faso living in neighboring countries, including Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Nigeria. Speaking on the issue, the Minister of Burkinabe Security revealed that the people involved in orchestrating this plot include some Burkinabe civilians, military personnel, and former military officials, all of whom are supported by Western intelligence agencies. Civil society actors and economic operators in Burkina Faso were also involved in the plot. Now, as we said at the beginning of this video, the former military junta of Burkina Faso, Paul-Henri Damiba, who was ousted from power in September 2022, and several prominent figures in Burkina Faso, including former ministers, journalists, and a former member of parliament, were all implicated in the plot. Imagine the caliber of people involved in this destabilization plot. It just reveals that these people have been working behind the scenes for a while to remove President Traore from power and take over the country. But it's very shocking that the former military junta is involved in this plot, because when he was deposed by Traore, he seemed to have taken it gracefully, and he stepped down quietly. However, his involvement in this plot shows clearly that he still holds a grudge and decided to work with external forces to launch a plot that will destabilize Traore's government. But the former military leader's involvement is not the shocking part. What is shocking, dark, and evil is the depth of the plot and the plans carried out by those involved in the plot. You see, those who were arrested and interrogated revealed that the recent insurgency attacks, which led to the deaths of hundreds of civilians and military soldiers in Burkina Faso, were orchestrated by them. These plotters, without an iota of conscience, purposely contacted insurgent groups and worked with them to carry out an attack on civilians and military alike. Fortunately, however, the authorities in Burkina Faso quickly caught on to the plot and arrested several of those people involved, leading to the dismantling of a significant portion of the plot. But the question is, why do these attacks against Traore keep happening? Before we get into that, we want to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Now, if you critically observe all the attacks against Traore, you would observe that they all have one thing in common. The orchestrators of the attacks are all local actors, meaning that they are all from Burkina Faso. But does it mean that despite the support from the citizens of the country, there are those who do not want Traore to remain as president of Burkina Faso? Well, when it comes to African politics and governance, one thing you should understand is that external factors are always at play. Given the abundance of African resources, history has shown us that the West, such as the US and France, is very interested in having access to these resources with ease. However, for the West, the only way to have easy access to these resources is not through trade like China does, but by controlling the government. When the government of an African country is pro-Western, the West would be able to sign agreements that grant them easy access to the resources in that country in exchange for pittance. This is their ultimate goal, and all those summits held between African countries and Western nations, where they always talk about how they want to see the continent develop, are just a farce. So, the plan is to woo the government to their side and then have easy access to the resources. And history has shown us that this plan works most of the time. Before now, when it seemed the African continent was waking up, most of the African leaders were pro-West and strong allies of the West. This stance has promoted corruption, poverty, and decades of underdevelopment because the African leaders, who are all lies, usually look the other way to allow the West unrestricted access to their resources. In exchange, these African leaders can loot as much money as they want and rule as long as they like without the international community condemning them. The only thing they have to do is conduct a farce election so that the West can continue to say that they are upholders of democracy. We have seen this happen over and over again before our very eyes. Just take a look at Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea, for example. These two African countries are led by African leaders who have ruled for more than 3 decades. These leaders have ruled so much that they are called African presidents for life because they have shown no sign of stepping down. Now, if their rule had made their countries great, nobody would have a problem with the ruling. However, these two countries are among the poorest in Africa, yet their leaders are living in affluence and wealth. Despite these, you would never hear the West call these two African leaders dictators. Instead, they are hailed as allies because these leaders are pro-West and support their interests. But what happens when African leaders are not pro-Western? Well, history tells us that African leaders that are not pro-Western are usually termed dictators and end up dead, assassinated by local forces influenced by the West. Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, Muammar Gaddafi, and a couple of others who refused to allow the West to influence them were all killed and called dictators and authoritarianism. And all of them were killed by people from their countries to create the notion that there is disunity and that not everybody is happy with their governance. This is the exact same thing that is happening with President Traore. From the very beginning, President Traore made it known that he was not pro-West, but pro-Burkina Faso, and since he stepped into power, he has stood by his stance. All his actions have been geared towards ensuring the complete sovereignty of Burkina Faso in every aspect, including military, economic, and political. His stance has made the West try different tactics to remove him from power, including sanctions, Western media, and coups. Western media always paint Traore as an authoritative leader who is trying to use anti-French sentiments to remain in power for his own benefit. The aim of this narrative is to change the minds of people concerning Traore and turn the minds of the Burkinabés against him, which would in turn lead to his removal as leader of the country. It's the same tactic that was used in Libya to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi. However, despite all these attacks, Traore has been surviving, and now Russia has decided to come to Traore's aid. After a particular attack against Traore, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov paid a visit to Burkina Faso and pledged to provide even more Russian military instructors that would train the Burkinabés military and law enforcement. He also confirmed that Russia will continue to supply military equipment to bolster the country's defense against militant groups, although he didn't specify what equipment will be sent. The Russian foreign minister made it known during his speech at a news conference. Sergei revealed that Russian instructors have been working here, and their number will increase. He added that, "We have supplied and will continue to supply military equipment to help strengthen Burkina Faso's defense capability and allow it to eliminate the remaining terrorist groups." He also appreciated the objective and fair position of Burkina Faso on the war in Ukraine. For our part, we are ready to provide our support for the just cause of Africans who are trying to free themselves from neo-colonial influence, he added. This means that Russia is eager to deepen its collaboration with Burkina Faso. But why is Russia eager to help President Traore? Well, the simple fact is that Russia is not just trying to deepen its relations with Burkina Faso, but also Africa as a whole because of the sanctions imposed by the West, which have made it isolated. So by providing military support to the Burkinabe military, Russia hopes to move out of isolation, countering France and Western influence in the country. This move benefits both sides because Russia gains a foothold in the country, while Traore's government gets access to Russian military support to tackle the insecurity. Russia's help will also help Traore's government deal with the internal forces trying to overthrow him and destabilize Burkina Faso. The fact is that President Traore needs to be protected because he is the best thing to have happened to Burkina Faso since Thomas Sankara was assassinated. Traore's entrance into the political scene of Burkina Faso, the Sahel, and Africa at large has exposed a lot of things going on behind the scenes. He has exposed the corruption and excesses of African leaders, as well as the exploitation and meddling attitude of the West in African affairs. However, aside from this, Traore has proven his commitment to the development, growth, and well-being of Burkina Faso. His commitment has translated into various development projects in Burkina Faso, including agricultural projects, improvement of the transport sector, reclaiming the country's gold, and developing Burkina Faso's financial sector. It's doubtful that Burkina Faso will ever get this chance to have a leader such as Traore. This is why President Traore has to be protected at all costs, and Russia's troops are a welcome development. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.